Hey guys, Two here of course, and today we're discussing the Shinonome and basically, as a result, the Super V crates. Now, uh, these crates drop tier 5 premiums basically, so I'll go over the percentage drop rates here. They go 5.26% chance to drop either all these premiums, so you get California, Warspite, Degrassi, Graspy, Mutsu, Dunkirk, T61, Igel, Molotov, Prince Eigel, Friedrich, Exeter, Monaghan, Gallant, London, West Virginia, Duca de Costa, Leone, Admiral Makarov, and the Shinonome, which is shown here. Now, these crates, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, all they do is drop tier 5 premiums. So, if you're wanting to get a tier 5 premium, you're already looking to spend some money on getting these tier 5 premiums, and you don't know which one, then this could be the way. It's pretty much guaranteed to give. I believe it's guaranteed to give Super V crate. Do tell me if this is not the case. I'm looking at it right here, and I don't see any other options. There's no other things that drop from this thing that drop from that crate. So I believe it has to give you a tier 5 premium ship. And if none of those ships are up to your fancy, then obviously don't get these. And obviously gambling is gambling, so just, be aware of all this sort of stuff. But today we've got ourselves Shinonome, and we're going to showcase what it can do. Now, Shinonome is basically a Fubuki. There's a couple differences, and I believe it has slightly worse torpedoes, or slightly slower torpedoes, something nonetheless. But basically you play it the exactly same way as the Fubuki. And I'm not sure if I've done a Fubuki masterclass, but this should be about cover it pretty much. Torp in the Mayhan, pre-firing your torps into caps is really generally a pretty good idea. The people that don't fall for it, well, they have to at least think, and they have to take the time to dodge. That's really what's important. And people that do, of course, free damage. If you're not contesting the cap, if no one's contesting the cap and they're not fighting for it, then honestly the torpedoes they're fine. It may seem like a waste, but it doesn't really matter. No one's gonna say, oh, your torpedo accuracy is really bad. No one cares about all that sort of stuff. Send the torpedoes. Worst thing that can happen is they can miss. The next best thing that can happen is they've made the DD think, oh crap, there's a bunch of destroyers. Panic, maybe he'll leave the smoke screen, maybe he has to force leave the smoke screen, maybe he'll get hit by a torp, and maybe, he takes some walloping damage from the torp and you can finish him off with your guns, like this situation here. Or maybe, it steers him away from the cap. People are scared of torpedoes, and this will help out. So, as we thought, Mayhan is panicking, he's just been torped, he's really not much health left. At this point, even I could have gone the Mayhan and the Shinonome, which is basically a Fubuki. Yeah, it's pretty rough for him. He has torpedoes of his own, and we're just going to carefully dodge this, thread the needle, big Shinonome size gap right there, so we can do what we can. Now, as I said before, pre-torping caps is what I want to recommend. You can pre-torp areas out of high traffic, and that's all great and all, but getting the caps is what wins games. Most games are won by by points, by capturing objectives and all that. It's actually quite rare to get all the enemy ships killed in a game. It's mostly captures that win these games. So realistically focus on the points, because your point gain and your number of points you have dictates how you can play the game. You can play the game in a defensive playstyle. You can just sit back, kite, retreat, defend caps, which is much easier than attacking caps, or you can be the guy that is stressed, trying to get the kill before we lose the game. That's the sort of playstyle you can give yourself that flexibility if you control the caps. So if we have more points than the enemy, then we can sit back, we can fall back, we can defend, and it's much easier. Waiting for the enemy to come into our gun turrets rather than having to get to the position, aggressively push, taking damage in the process. No need for any of that if you're actually ahead on points. So getting that point lead early on is very good. That being said, it's not worth the death of your boat. That Mayhan, for example, if he knew he couldn't win the gunfight and he's already been torped, should have straight up disengaged. But when you've been torped, when you're under that situation, when you're in the battle environment, you're not always thinking perfectly. And I don't think I ever do the same either. I'm not always perfect, unfortunately. I give these guides, but I can tell you what I would recommend based on rewatching it as well. NC, he hadn't been paying attention to the map there. Obviously, we were spotted by the Mayhan, so there is a potential for torps coming down the alleyway, but he didn't look at the mini-map, and that's what caused his downfall there. Again, mini-map, pretty much every time you fire in a battleship, and every torpedo salvo you send in the DD, pretty much you want to check the minimap as regular as often. These are just minimap tips just to help you get along and really give yourself a good view of what's going on in the game that you're in. So, I actually asked my teammates, my division mates there, which is I believe the Hivehound, who's a community contributor, and we've got Billy Meister, who is a lovely Twitch streamer, very fun guy, if you quite enjoy just casual ships with a bit of fun and a bit of laughter, and just a wee bit of joy there as well. Just a little sprinkle of everything. You could see him out on Twitch. And of course you have the Hivehound, who is he's lovely CC, yeah, lovely CC. You should go check him out if you haven't already. I'll link both their channels in the description below as well. But yes, I asked them if they wanted me to go for A, because that way I could capture A, and as well as spotting the majority of the enemy team, but they said they were fine there, so I went over to capture Charlie. That was my options, and yeah, it is honestly the best way for you to do it. You want to be focusing, getting more caps here, and getting the situation under control for us. You've got 1 cap as opposed to the enemy's 0. We're even on ships, and this Fuso and I believe that's a Poltava, there we go, are having some sort of brawl. Division mate Blade just kills out another cruiser, that's always nice, and the last known DD was spotted over here, so I've been sent over to eliminate him. Believe though it's an Akatsuki, and it's going to be a pretty tough fight, honestly. This is still basically a Fubuki, so it's going to be pretty rough to fight an Akatsuki at that health. Pretty even stalemate, honestly, but in those scenarios it really is important, depending on who gets the first opening salvo and who gets the most support as well, because that Fuso alone, its presence is basically saying I can't fight that destroyer, because Fuso has 12 guns as well as secondaries, and every little bit of damage you take will count towards winning or losing a gunfight. So we don't want to get spotted here, a little bit risky, but fortunately the Fuso is completely focused on the enemy, or our friendly Poltava, and he's not really noticed these torpedoes are coming for him. And again, Fubuki torps, Shinonome torps hit pretty hard, and all it takes is 4 to send him to a devastating death. Alright, DD gets killed, I believe, by the Poltava, which is really good, which means our job over here is pretty much over. We've got the cap, and we can just straight up push towards Alpha and get the final cap done. Now, as you see, they've not fought for caps the entire game here, besides that Mayhan, and they're down to 35 points. And yeah, it's pretty rough. There's not much they can do. They lose another ship, they're basically out. The only way they can do this is if they get some kills, and not only that, they have to basically kill all of us at this point, because they've not paid attention to the caps. They'd have to recap all 3 objectives, and even then it might not be enough for them to get to 100,000 points in that time zone, so they're forced to push in to a superior force. And you see how effective getting caps has led them to, how effective it is into winning this game. It doesn't even matter if they had more ships than us. The fact that we can fall back and retreat and just have favourable positions where they had to push into us really means that they're really struggling. So even if we did lose the engagement on Alpha's side, the points difference is just so extreme. 600 points to 35. It would have been a little bit different if they won on the other side, so that's a couple battleship kills, maybe 100 and 235, maybe even slightly more, but it still would have been roughly a 300 point deficit against their team, and the 2 caps alone is just simply too much. And our team would basically won on the other side as well, and they're just capping. This is the whole point here, what I'm saying. DD play, if you're playing the torpedo boat focus here, you really want to fight for caps. Chasing damage will not get you the result, and honestly, this is how I'd recommend you play the Shinonome and slash Fubuki. So yeah, as we were saying, this is kind of a discussion about Shinonome and sort of playstyle, but it's also about these Super V containers. So if you like what you see in terms of the Shinonome, the California, Horsebite, Degrassi, Grafspeed, Mitsu, Dunkirk, T61, Igel, Molotov, Prince Igel Friedrich, a lot of different vibes, Exeter, Monaghan, Gallant, London, West Virginia, Duca de Costa, Leone, Makarov, and the Shinonome. If you like those boats and you don't feel like buying in particular one, maybe you get a V crate, but you gotta remember, gambling. So just be careful, guys, about how you spend the money. I thought I'd showcase this because Hive was wanting me to do that because he thought it had a good game. I thought it was an okay game. So yeah, hope you guys had a fun day. I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.